Hello, dear lovely audience. Welcome back to another Kelly Ripa Show New Recap. Everyone, I know y'all have been waiting for this. Thank you guys so much for your patience. Backstage at the glittering spectacle of the Academy Awards 2026, the air hummed with a strange mix of elegance and anxiety, the kind that only exists where perfection is expected and judgment is inevitable. Beneath the golden glow of chandeliers and the constant flicker of camera flashes, celebrities drifted through corridors like living sculptures, each outfit a carefully curated statement. But even in a place where confidence is worn as boldly as couture, doubt has a way of slipping in. That's where Kelly Ripa found herself, caught between charm and vulnerability. Dressed immaculately, every detail of her look considered down to the last stitch, she had already smiled for cameras, exchanged pleasantries, and embodied the effortless grace expected of a veteran in the spotlight. Beside her stood her husband, Mark Consuelos, equally polished, though perhaps slightly more relaxed, his demeanor suggesting he knew how to navigate both red carpets and real life with equal ease. And then, like a quiet shift in the atmosphere, she appeared. Anna Wintour didn't need an introduction. She never did. Her presence alone carried the weight of decades of fashion authority. With her signature sunglasses and unmistakable composure, she moved through the backstage space not as a guest, but as a silent judge of the unspoken competition unfolding around her. For a brief moment, time seemed to tighten. Kelly saw her. And suddenly, all the confidence that had carried her through the evening flickered. There's something deeply human about that moment, the realization that no matter how experienced you are, there will always be someone whose opinion feels larger than your own certainty. For Kelly, Anna wasn't just another attendee. She was the authority, the woman whose approval could elevate a look into legend, or quietly dismiss it into irrelevance. Kelly turned slightly toward Mark, a half-smile forming, equal parts humor and hesitation. "This," she murmured almost to herself, "is a terrifying question." But she asked it anyway. Because sometimes, courage doesn't look like boldness. It looks like vulnerability wrapped in a polite smile. As Anna approached, the exchange felt almost cinematic. No cameras needed to capture it. The tension alone could have filled a theater. Kelly greeted her warmly, her voice steady but laced with playful honesty. "What are your thoughts on our looks?" she asked, gesturing subtly between herself and Mark. It was a simple question. But in that setting, directed at that person, it carried the weight of a final exam. Anna paused, not dramatically, but just enough to make the moment linger. Her gaze, famously analytical, took in the details, the fabric, the tailoring, the balance between boldness and restraint. It was the kind of look that could dismantle or define. And then, with a calmness that only heightened her authority, she answered, "You look fantastic." Just like that, the tension dissolved. Kelly laughed, an immediate, genuine release of the pressure she had built up in her own mind. The fear, the anticipation, the silent what-if scenarios, all of it melted into relief. It was a reminder that sometimes the monsters we imagine are far more intimidating than reality. Mark, ever the perfect counterbalance, added his own twist to the moment. With a grin, he pointed out his sneakers, perhaps not the most traditional Oscars choice, and waited for the verdict. Anna's response: measured, observant, unbothered. "Comfortable," she said. And in that single word was a quiet acknowledgement. Fashion doesn't always have to suffer to succeed. What made the moment resonate wasn't just the humor or the celebrity of it all, it was the honesty. In a world that often feels curated to perfection, Kelly's admission, "This is a terrifying question," cut through the illusion. It reminded everyone watching, whether backstage or through screens, that even those who seem the most composed still wrestle with self-doubt. That's the paradox of glamour. The more flawless the image, the more invisible the insecurity behind it. And yet, it's those small, unscripted moments that people remember. Not the perfectly posed photos or the rehearsed speeches, but the glimpses of real emotion, the laughter that comes after relief, the courage it takes to ask a question you're not sure you want answered. Backstage at the Oscars is often described as a world of its own. Away from the polished stage and the orchestrated applause, it's where celebrities become people again. Shoes are adjusted, breaths are taken, and conversations happen that never make it to headlines, except when they capture something universally relatable. This was one of those moments. Kelly didn't need validation from Anna Wintour to define her style or her presence. She had already built a career on authenticity, humor, and a kind of charisma that doesn't rely on approval. But in asking that question, she revealed something more powerful than confidence. She revealed courage. Because it takes courage to care. To put yourself out there, knowing that judgment is possible, especially from someone whose opinion carries global influence, isn't weakness. It's the very thing that makes moments like this meaningful. And perhaps that's why it lingered. Not because Anna said, "fantastic," though that certainly didn't hurt, but because Kelly was willing to ask in the first place. In the end, the exchange lasted only a few seconds. A brief interaction in a night filled with countless others. But it carried a narrative far bigger than its duration. A story about perception, vulnerability, and the quiet bravery of being human in a world that expects perfection. As the night continued and the spotlight shifted back to the stage, the backstage corridors returned to their rhythm. Celebrities moved on, conversations resumed, and the Oscars unfolded as they always do, with grandeur, emotion, and spectacle. But somewhere in that swirl of elegance and expectation, a simple question had already made its mark. A terrifying question. And a beautifully human answer.